God bless you. Welcome to Growing in Grace podcast. We're glad that you've joined us
All
again,
right, all right,
and
all
we're
right.
wanting you to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And we're glad that you're here with us today.
Mm-hmm.
We've been having a series of conversations that deal with mental health and
Mm,
mental health things that will help the mind.
right.
God has given us, He has not given us a spirit of fear,
That's right.
but one of love, power, and a sound mind. And to
Mm-hmm.
really have health, we need minds that are strong as
True.
well. And so, even in our physical, our mind can play a role in our physical. And so, today we
Mm,
have Elder Gary Battle here
mm-hmm.
with us today. And we want to talk some today about his journey
Mm.
and having a mind that heals,
A
a
mind that
mind that
heals.
heals. He's been through quite a few things, and so,
Right, right.
but we want to really focus in on the role that your mind has played in your healing, in different parts and different uh, things that you've had to go through.
Mm.
Um, so
Yeah.
you can speak to your journey and things that have happened and challenges that have happened and
Mm-hmm.
that your mind had to play a role towards your healing.
Mm. Well, that's very interesting. And first of all, I thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity to just speak. Um, but that is a long road, a broad subject, a deep chasm, if you will, about a lot of things. And I'll just tell you part of my story.
Yes. Hmm.
Uh, and um, and of course, we can zero in on some things that you think would be helpful. But um, as you know and some don't. First of all, I'm like, this year I'll be 74.
Hmm.
And I went to the military when I was 18. And so it's been like 50 plus years.
Hmm.
I bring that up because it, of course, impacted a lot of things. Not only did I go to the military, but I went to the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
And again, I just fast forward 55 years.
Hmm.
I'm now taking some action, if you will, therapy, the kind of action I'm taking, mental therapy, for some stuff that I probably should have dealt with at least 50 years ago.
Hmm.
But for a myriad of reasons, I didn't.
Hmm.
And I'm now seeing some of the results of my failure to do that. Not all of it was bad or
Hmm.
is bad, but it is certainly impactful.
Hmm.
Now, I just started and jumped 50 years and went to the end and said some things, but the journey is, that is my journey. It's how I chose to deal with it or not, you know, and why I'm choosing to deal with it now. That's the journey that I'm on. That's what it takes.
Yes.
And so, obviously, there is an incredible amount of territory that needs to be explored, talked about, and thought about there. And I'm at this point in my life, I'm willing to be as transparent as I need to be or can be, not altogether for me, but it does help me.
Yes.
But not altogether for me. But I think it is selfish of me and anybody else to have a journey or have something that could help somebody else, and you choose to keep it to yourself.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm not, I'm not just willing, but I'm very anxious to share my that part of my life, which is, for the most part, has been not so much a secret,
Hmm.
but just there's certain things you don't talk about.
Yeah.
And as a culture and as a people,
Hmm.
I think,
Hmm.
since you know, I am black and I live in this culture, and I tend to view it from that perspective.
Hmm.
It may be true in all cultures and all races of people, but we don't talk about mental issues or mental health. I think as much as we should and as healthy as we should.
Yes.
You know, because you talk about mental issues, it's oh my goodness, that's not only a no, but you know, it's you know what that means.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is vital, as you've said in your opening statement, to our well-being. We are mental as much as physical, as much as emotional, as much as any other part you can name. But mental health is necessary, and you cannot do anything about it until you you open it up. You open up to it. So yeah.
Yes, yes, and
Does that make sense?
everybody
Yeah.
has. If you're alive, you got a mind, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you need to take care of it.
You do.
You need to take care of it, and that's part of what takes care of you. And the thing of it is, I like to start a little earlier than now. And you did allude to you went into the military, which impacted your mind. And for a while and for a season, you ignored the impact. Perhaps,
Yes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it
No.
sounds like you might have ignored some of the impact of actually experiencing
Yeah,
war
I
for
wanted
a
to
period
just
of time.
jump in, and I want you to continue that. But
Yes.
yes, I ignored it. Some I was, I understood I was ignoring it.
Yes.
But the point that I really make here is I didn't really realize I was ignoring it. Because it has become my new normal.
I see.
And it's just the way it is. And when you are unaware of something that you might be doing right or wrong, you really can't do anything about it. It's outside of your control. When you're not aware, it's outside of your control. The thing that I want to focus on around is why you need to talk to somebody else other than Bubba and them,
Yes. Yes.
and the people that is going through the same thing you are, because they can make you aware that ain't normal.
That's right.
Or and you can argue the point, but it's different. And so awareness
Yes.
gives you power.
Yes. And oftentimes people
Yeah,
are not aware
yeah,
of their abnormal
yeah,
behavior because you don't see yourself.
yeah.
You don't see how oftentimes you don't, until it's brought to your attention
Exactly.
that you did this and you're doing this, and
Yeah.
but for us sometimes we don't see ourselves until somebody brings it to our attention.
For example, today, even right now, and it's like right now, if I was sitting with my back to that door, I would be very uncomfortable and very nervous, and whatever my body does, because your body has memory, it would react if somebody comes in. You know, I would have to physically see who and what that is. That's a result of conditioning over time. I attribute it to the war and different things because you had to be alert, you had to be aware. But even today, and that probably will never change. But I'm aware of that, and so I can make concessions if I need to. It's like I won't go off, I won't get all out of sorts. But it just, if you know and everybody else knows, then we make adjustments, we make arrangements. That don't mean anything except that is a fact, you know, and you won't put me in that position, or I won't put myself in that position. I always, not always, but usually I'm early. I have to see where the exits are. I have to see, I just got to see what the escape route is. Now, that's normal for me. That's probably not normal for you. And but since I know that, I'm aware of that, I don't put you in that kind of position. So I just come early and prepare myself so that it looks normal.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things you have to do. But your mind.
Yes, and so
Yeah,
one of the things I do want to kind of explore a little
yeah,
bit is I want to come back to some of these things that
hmm
you're actually addressing them now,
right.
and for a season you didn't,
No,
for a long season you didn't address them,
right.
but you did go through some health crisis, uh, and how your mind played a role in you getting over those
Yeah.
crises. You experienced when I first began to know you,
hmm
I was a lad,
Yeah.
and you had an
Aneurysm.
aneurysm.
hmm
And can you speak on how your mind played a role in you actually overcoming that?
hmm
Because that actually impacted
My
your
mind.
mind,
Yeah.
and which impacted your body and your abilities and all of that. And so, what role and how did you come to health, and what role did your mind play even in that season?
Well, that's all of these are long stories, but
Uh-huh.
the short version of that is, first of all, an aneurysm, which I had never even heard the word before I had one,
Mm-hmm.
to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
What in the world is that? So that actually a ruptured blood vessel in your head, in my head. In this case, it can happen in any part of your body, but mine happened in, they call it a baric aneurysm in the back of my head. And so they had to operate, clip, do whatever they did, fixed it, clamped it off. That left me at at that time. That was in '81. I'm 31 years old, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but that left me unable to talk, uh, walk, a whole lot of things, and it impacted my eye, and so I couldn't see out of one eye, and it still has some limitations. And at 31, I'm probably was in the best physical shape I've ever been in my life, but when that happens, all of immediately I'm down. After the operation, that's where I was. So you can imagine the thinking
Mm-hmm.
of like, what in the world am I going to do? Well, long story short is I didn't know what to think, what to do. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to combat it. So I had no history to or examples to deal with. And I remember talking to my pastor then, Bishop Lucas. Just he and it was encouragement and whatnot. And they gave the prognosis was from the doctors that it would take. I would I would have that deformity for the rest of my life. I mean, it's just what it is
Mm-hmm.
because the brain does not repair itself in that way. It just don't. Now I heard all of this and I got all of this information, but I decided that first thing I made a decision. If this is what I've got to deal with, I'm going to do it the best way I know how. Whatever that is, I'm going to learn. It's just not going to work. So I talked to Bishop Lucas, and we was talking about different things, and just I say talk,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't talk. I
Uh-huh.
mean, really struggling to just to do the simplest things. But he was very encouraging and whatnot. And I remember this at some point after I made the decision that I'm not just going to let it beat me. I'm just
You're
going,
gonna fight. You're gonna
yeah.
do something. Yeah.
If you're going to take me out, it's not going to be easy,
Uh-huh.
because so I decided I was just going to do all I can. And so at some point I was able to start getting up and just ambering to around, just doing what I could do. And over a period of time, 6 months or so, I was able to walk,
Mm-hmm.
very slowly, talk a little bit, very gravelly and all. But I remember this one Thursday night, I made it to the church
Mm-hmm.
and just, sit there. And my pastor at that point did something very unusual. He had me to, he wanted to hear some words from me to talk.
Uh-huh.
Well, I sat there for a minute, and I was thinking, I, I know he know I can't talk because we, I know he know this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would he have me to get up and to embarrass me this way or something? My mind was going through all these things, but I decided, okay, I'm just going to, I'll do what I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up that Thursday night and just started trying to say something, whatever. And I was able to be, it was understandable,
Uh-huh.
you know, which kind of surprised me, like, but do you not know from that time to today, I've not quit talking.
Oh, I see.
It's uh, so doing what is not usual or what is not normal or seem to be impossible is a matter of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't have any legs, obviously you don't get up and walk
Mm-hmm.
like that,
Mm-hmm.
but you can do something.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to choose to do that, and that's the thing that I'm really pointing at. You
Yes.
got to choose to do the uncomfortable and have to talk yourself away from I can't do it.
Yes. Mindset
Mindset.
plays a great role because, like, just
Yeah.
like you alluded to the legs,
Yeah.
actually, there are some runners without legs.
Yeah.
There's actually some runners. What
Yeah.
I'm saying is they lost their legs,
Yeah.
so but they wanted to keep running
Yeah.
and they wanted to run. They
You
said,
got
"I'm
to
gonna run
find a
again."
way.
They found some legs, and what I'm saying, they developed legs
Yeah.
so that there are some people who actually can run with false legs.
Yeah. And that is and this is what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really what happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody. It's not what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's how I interpret it and
Mm-hmm.
what I make it mean.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I decided, I told you that I'm not going to just give up and not fight.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was going to do, but I know what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to quit.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to find other ways and means to accomplish that. So I couldn't use this one eye,
Mm-hmm.
but I had another one.
Mm-hmm.
you
You gonna
know,
use that one?
use that one and not make it so obvious. It's not always, my conversation wasn't always, well, I can't see. It's like, so I just have to turn to where, again, like I was said in the beginning, I
Mm-hmm.
know there's some things that I have and I do that's not normal for other people. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of putting them at odds, I get myself in position to where it's as normal as possible,
Yes.
if,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
So the eye was an issue, but I found a way around it. Even today, I mean, I can see, thank God.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor said I wouldn't, but I can.
But you can.
You know, I do have limited movement. I have some issues there, but I have defied all odds. In fact, my doctor told me, the doctor that I had at a point, because I kept asking questions because I'm trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they were just ignoring me or just, whatever. So finally he said one time to me,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I'm just going to tell you, we've not had anybody respond like that. So we don't know.
We don't know. We don't even know. I mean, we don't know how you doing what you
How
do.
you do that.
You've gone beyond our expectations. So you're in a territory that we can't even explain.
And somebody had enough understanding to just let me know. And that's fine. Now I know you don't know, I can quit asking those questions and,
Yes.
and help figure it out. But just speaking of that, there were 7 men that had aneurysm the same time I did. That I, in my in different places and whatnot. All of them are dead.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why God chose me,
Mm-hmm.
obviously He had something for me to do, but I wouldn't quit. I would not just die because they said I was going to die.
And that can make the difference
Yeah,
in many people's lives,
yeah,
the mindset that you have.
yeah,
And one of the things I want to go back to is where you couldn't speak,
yeah,
but you kept communicating with your pastor in
yeah.
some form.
Right.
And when you did show up, your pastor put you in a position to where you had to.
Yeah,
And by some means, your pastor had more faith than you did.
absolutely.
And through that scenario, your faith was sparked after that to go forward because now you got a mindset that, hey, I can do
Yeah.
this.
Not
I,
only it's possible, but
mm-hmm,
I'm actually doing, and it's
mm-hmm,
not that bad. The
mm-hmm,
impossible is not really that bad. you
uh-huh,
know, living in that space, operating in that space, it takes a different kind of thinking. You
mm-hmm,
know, you can't concentrate on what is.
mm-hmm,
You've got to always go to what's possible.
mm-hmm,
You know, and that is something that I learned and I am learning all along. It doesn't matter what is.
mm-hmm,
It really don't because what is.
mm-hmm,
The question becomes, is it possible?
mm-hmm,
Well, if it's possible, you still don't know how, but
mm-hmm,
that's immaterial. You just learn. That's something you can learn,
mm-hmm,
but nobody can teach you to have to believe the possible impossible things.
mm-hmm,
You have to you got to develop that. Where? From the book of impossibles.
mm-hmm,
Really, and I know people expect me to say, you know, how wonderful and possible and everything God is, and I am going to say that because it's true. But I'm saying it from a place of knowing, not guessing. I don't know all that God will, can, and could, all, even with me. But I know is possible.
mm-hmm.
And the reason I know that is because I see examples of it in the scripture. So
Yeah.
where I couldn't find this faith or the examples of somebody show me what to do, I can and could and do find it from scripture.
Mm-hmm,
And that is faith,
mm-hmm,
believing in just what God said alone. There's no support to that.
mm-hmm,
There's nothing that I can, or nobody I can use to support that. It's just God said it. You know
mm-hmm,
that saying.
mm-hmm,
God said it.
mm-hmm.
I,
I believe it,
uh huh.
and that settles it.
Yes, but I like to shorten that.
Mm-hmm,
God said it, and that's it.
mm-hmm,
It's settled,
mm-hmm.
whether I believe it or not.
Well, now that's true.
Yeah, if God said it, I don't have to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
That settles it.
But God is still true.
He is true. Now I don't know how it works for me altogether, but then that's where my growth and stuff come in. I know we're kind of getting off topic a little bit, but
And the thing is though, as you are going through these challenges,
mm-hmm.
you have to have something to feed your mind. And one of the things that was perhaps able to feed you is hearing something
Mm-hmm.
to believe in the possibilities of God.
Yeah,
And that's where your mind can help in your healing.
yeah,
It's as a man thinketh, as one scripture says,
yeah.
so
So
is
is he?
he.
Yeah,
And so part of, I hear this, and you can speak on this, but I hear this,
mm-hmm.
that there have been some people who've been diagnosed, same diagnosis,
Yeah,
two people. One believed the diagnosis, the other believed that there's a possibility other than the diagnosis. One take the diagnosis and say, well, you got 6 months to live.
right.
You got 6 months to live. You got stage 4 cancer. You got 6 months to live.
Mm-hmm.
They go home and
And
they
get
die
prepared
in
to
3.
die. Yeah,
And die in 3 or 4.
yeah. And
Maybe
that's
6.
yeah,
But they don't extend beyond. Then the other person with
Yeah.
the same diagnosis say you got 6 months to live and say, yeah, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm gonna live longer than that. I'm going on. I'm going on. And they go years
Yeah.
beyond the 6 months.
Well, that's what I said, when they told me that, all of the things. And of course, even beyond that, I had cancer. And all the things that they said could happen did happen. And that should give credence to their prognosis. But I said, well, I hear you. And I didn't say that's not true. I said, okay, all right. But it's not a question for him, them, or they. It's a question for me. Well, what are you going to do? What am I going to do about that? Well, as you know, there's nothing you can do about. I can't do anything about an aneurysm or cancer or any other thing that I can do. I probably could have done, but now that it's here, it's here. The first thing I've decided is that I'm not just going to go out and lay down and die. If I got a year to live, I'm going to live a year. I'm going to live. I'm not going to just sit here. But that makes something else kick in, and that is the will to survive and to thrive. And that's I'm happy about I'm excited
You're glad to
about
be
life.
alive.
I'm not only glad I'm glad to be living,
Yeah.
not just alive, but I'm glad I'm living. And that's the other thing is that I've just transformed my thinking from just existing to being breathing
Yes.
to really engage in life on its terms. And I, again, I know I'm going to leave here. At
Yes.
some point, I don't know anybody ever stayed here. But I'm leaving a legacy. I'm contributing to life while I'm living, and that makes my life worth living.
Yes, yes. Now, I want to go back to
Let's go.
I want to go back to you overcoming cancer. Yeah, like you said, you had the prognosis. They said this, they said that, and it sounds like what you were saying is that you didn't diminish their prognosis, but you may have thought about somebody who could go beyond what they said.
Yeah.
And in your thinking, your mind begins to think about the possibilities of what God says versus what they are saying. It's just like you go to the doctor, you can, like you said, I hear you, I
Yeah.
hear you.
Yeah.
You can hear what the doctor says, and you can believe them to an extent, but then you got to believe in something that's beyond them. And
Well,
that's what can help your mind to help you to go to a place to where that's better than what they're telling you.
well, here's the thing, Ella.
Uh-huh.
Um, I want to say it this way. It's not only that I believe them and hear them to a certain extent. I actually, I did this and I do this. I thank them. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so I acknowledge what you're saying. That's that's true. That may be true. I'm not disputing that. I'm not even doubting it. I'm not even angry about it. I'm nothing about that. And I need you to tell me all that you see and you think. That's going to help me to form my course of action. You've got a course, a prognosis. I do too. You know, and I see I'm not going to be able to get mine with you because this is you already told me what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. I got to find a different approach because I don't intend to succumb to that altogether. Now, I don't deny what is, what's truth. I think we make a mistake when I'm not going to, I'm not, I hear that. I understand that. But I also have a source. So I hear what you're saying. Now let me go over here and see what what's possible. What is an alternative to that? that's where I live. You know, it's not. I don't arguing with somebody denying a fact. I think diminishes and really limits your possibilities. You know, because I'm going to have to come to you perhaps or him uh, for some painkillers or something or whatever that is, and you know. In other words, we need all the information,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
but 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 God got the best plan.
Yes.
He got the
Yes.
best plan.
Yes. And so you use a mindset that involves the physician
Hmm.
and God, not just
One,
the physician.
yes.
And God and the Lord even says, "They that are whole
Ne-
need not a physician,"
mhm.
and He didn't speak against the physician.
Right.
And in fact, he one time he used a substance like a medicine
Yeah.
to perform his healing,
Mhm.
and in fact, a lot of the medicines that are here today that we have,
Yeah.
they come from the things that God already created.
If they are good medicines, that's
Yes.
where they need to come from. Yeah. I want to say one thing about that. A physician, my cancer doctor, he and I argued, you know, because, and it wasn't, I was disputing him, but I'm just not going to, you know, he wanted me to do this, this, and this, and this, and all these kind, and he was in charge and every, you know, and we had a problem. You know, he was the best that there is in that type of cancer, but he was just telling me uh, what's going to happen and how it's going to, you know, we had a problem. And I was very, very upfront with him. I hear you, and I understand that, but I'm not going to do that. You know, that's not going to happen. And and the reason I say that is because you know, I don't deny it, but I don't just swallow everything anybody say as if it is the gospel. That's not all that there is, and I think we have to take a stance, and you know, and but I'm willing to be wrong. I'm not just right because I say I'm right, but he's not right just because he says he's right either. You know, and so you know, I want to take an active role, and I do in my healing and recovery and things like that. But I don't want to be silly and you know not listen to what they say. But just don't think you're just gonna hand me something and I'm just gonna swallow all these pills because that's what you say do. Anyway, that's a side note. But I think we do have to become active. And that's important. I think you got to play a role in your healing, survival, and everything. It's like even not even, but especially with God. God give us commandments to do. He ain't gonna do them for us. You got to do that. You know, if you expect to get the results, you got to do something, and that's what I'm really trying to get across. If the message I know may be coming out garbled, but the idea is you have really have got to be an active participant in faith and healing and everything. What God gives, what man gives, what anybody gives, and I think we make a mistake when we just blindly follow stuff without really knowing knowing what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's all.
So basically, in your healing, so you had a certain cancer,
Mhm.
but you invoked your mind into you began to think about, okay, well, how can I overcome this?
Yeah.
You listened to the doctors, but
Mhm.
then you started doing some research and you started doing some thinking, not just what he said, but
Yeah.
some other things. Can you speak on that and your path toward overcoming? And the role that your mind played in you overcoming.
Well, like I was saying, your mind is your roadmap, is your guide. You spoke about it as a man think. If, and I've experienced this, you start thinking about everything that's going wrong and why me and oh Lord, you will wake up. You don't intend to get depressed and in a state of, you know, but you will. when you come to yourself, you are somewhere you don't even recognize where you are, and
Mm-hmm.
your as your mind goes, your body follows, and that's critical because knowing that I've got to keep my. There's nothing wrong with my mind, you know. It's my body that's failing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to have my mind engaged to where it needs to take me to a place that my body will follow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the point, the only point I'm making, that as your mind goes, you will follow that. You don't know how all the time, but you will figure out a way. But when you let yourself slide into apathy, into self pity, and all of this blaming and
Mm-hmm.
denying and all of those kind of things, it's a dark place. It's hard to get out of. It's a maze,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to get out of. But that's the reason why, and I mentioned that I argued with my doctor. It's not that I'm fighting with him, but I, this is my life we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as casual as that, and it is
Mm-hmm.
not as. I'm not a statistic,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. Maybe to you, but I'm not to me.
Right.
This is the only one I have.
Right. Right.
So I now I'm forming in my mind the plan of action, and I'm trying to decide if you're going to be a part of it. you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Right. Right.
and so yeah, it's a little a little bit. This is serious business we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, but the mind is that critical. It plays that critical role in whether or not. Again, it's how you live a life. Now that I still alluded to in the beginning and all along, there's some things I'll never get past.
Mm-hmm.
There's some limitations that I have. I've accepted that. But my mind is not limited,
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so the question is, how do I make you not, I don't want to make you uncomfortable because I have a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to think about all these things. And it's not just for me. I'm in a community.
Mm-hmm.
I got to contribute,
Mm-hmm.
and just because I can't run as fast as you can,
Mm-hmm.
I can do something,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to be able to do it to the best of my ability. And in some ways, these seemingly obstacles, aneurysm, cancers, other things, they have made me better,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was another way,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but since it wasn't,
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I really am okay. And I don't, very rarely do I bring up these things as
Mm-hmm.
I need you to pat me on the back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I'm, I'm okay. I mean, anyway, you didn't ask
Yeah.
about all that, but that's,
So let me ask you a question
yeah.
about. Let me ask you a question about. So you did have the argument with the doctor, and you were not satisfied with everything the doctor was saying.
Right.
And what things did you do to overcome that you began to work with your mind and in your thinking that was different from what the doctor says that enabled you to overcome? Let me set it up a little bit better, maybe.
Okay.
I know I've heard. I haven't come to the position where I needed a lot of doctors stuff
Uh-huh.
yet, and
Thank
I'm,
God.
I don't know what the future holds, but I just haven't come to that position where I need medicine and stuff like that. But I have heard from some that the doctors have prescribed a medicine for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they begin to know themselves that the dosage was too high or it was not a good medicine for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the patient has been able to bring things to the doctor's attention that, hey, this is too high, or maybe I need another type because
Mm-hmm.
it's causing me a problem and I shouldn't take this. And they begin to know. And sometimes patients have revealed this is a true
Mm-hmm.
statistic that sometimes doctors have made mistakes.
Oh yeah.
You understand?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So There is a role that a person has to play in their healing. They have to play an active role in their healing, and they have to consider some things, and their faith has to play a role in,
Right.
and how they think, and their research, and their study, and their understanding of what's being said. So,
Yeah.
how did you actually navigate the doctor, and then you had doctor's treatment, and you had Gary's treatment,
Yeah.
and how did you marry the two?
Well, I'd like to back into that by this. The, the reason, the part of the reason for, and it's not arguing with the doctor just to be cantankerous and to
I
be
understand.
different, but I was after information, I was after something.
Mm-hmm.
And just to let him know, first of all, that I am a partner in this, and I think they respect that. And I wasn't disputing him, but I did say, and that no, I'm not going to, you know, I'm not taking that. Well, why aren't you? Because of the side effects, because of this, because of that. Now if we got something else, I can work with that. But that that's a no go for me. And they do respect that and honor that. But you do have to do something, now, because if you just don't do anything the doctor's saying, is you're wasting your time and theirs too.
Mm-hmm.
My What I was saying to him was, this thing right here, I'm not, and I told him this exactly. I'd rather have the disease rather than the side effect. You know, that's my choice. And I'm
Right.
letting you know up front. That's what, so that he's not looking for the results he thinks he's going to get because I've been taking this medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's not getting it. So something must, I need to up the dose or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to go through that. That's not happening. Not with me. Now I can't do that from a standpoint of ignorance, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just to be different of what somebody else said. I need to know because now again, it's the only life I know I have
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not willing to gamble that, And then when I know it's like blood pressure medicine, some of that stuff. I had several conversations. No, ma'am. No, sir. We're not doing that because it brings about certain other conditions
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not willing to trade off for. So to answer your question, in that you you need to become a partner with your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know where you are really,
Mm-hmm.
and and so forth. So you just have to be transparent. That takes a little bit of something
Mm-hmm.
to be able to do that. Now you go in there fighting the doctor, I think you're gonna come out losing every time.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But they do need to know how you really feel, and and I always say to them, and I say to you and anybody else, I'm willing to be convinced otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I am. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to do it if I'm convinced that that's what I should do.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think that's the easiest way to kind of to answer that. So my mind is not. I'm not doing that when
Mm-hmm.
I go in the door. It's like now I've had to do some study, research, and so forth and
Mm-hmm.
so on, and then I decide that I'm you got to decide now whether or
Mm-hmm.
not you're willing to take that risk because that is your life,
Right. Right. Right.
and you can't blame the doctor because you didn't do what he said.
Right. You didn't take his plan,
Right,
his course of action. So you did come to an understanding.
right.
And did you do some things that you felt it was necessary for you to do that was not necessarily prescribed by the doctor?
Well, all the time, that's where I live and have
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and even now, I may toy with them a little bit because it's like because I take the test, the blood test and all those other kind of things, and they reveal certain things, your numbers and so forth and so on. And so then I asked them, well, how is that? And so, oh, you're doing good. Your numbers are coming down. Oh, okay. Well, that's because I didn't take your medicine. you know what I mean? you know, um, you see, and as you mentioned earlier, you can share with them once you get a rapport
Yes.
of some things, and it's like, and they're learning, and if they're good doctors, they want to learn too, you know. But you need to be transparent, and but you don't need to tell everything you know all the time at first, you know.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
But you do need to be able to do that. And I do that now. You mentioned dosages and all that. If you follow these plans, these prescriptions and stuff like that, you'll be a zombie in a lot of cases, you know. That's just not. You got to listen to yourself, your body. And but you gotta you gotta be careful, and I want to be careful about saying that when I say don't take the doctor's medicine, somebody's going to end up in a coma or something.
Right. And that's not what we're saying.
That is not what
We're
I'm
not
saying.
saying don't take the doctor's medicine. However,
Yeah.
you this is where your mind got to come in, and you need some help from God.
You
And
better.
sometimes that something begins to help you to know I need to do something other than this. And so you've got to
Yeah.
rely on your faith and God
Yeah.
and a combination of, because the doctors know some stuff.
Yeah.
Not that they're ignorant.
Right.
However, God has given you something to think with as well. And this is why we're having this conversation,
Yeah.
partially having a conversation about a mind that heals. You got to have a certain type mindset.
Yeah, you
A
got to
certain
develop it though.
Yes.
You don't just wake up with it, and you don't just come to know that, you know, from whatever, you know, you just go to sleep and you wake up, you got that. There's work involved in developing your mind. And it's hard work.
Yeah.
And before I lose this, and that is, if you do decide to do something other or different, even with the doctor, or cut your dosage and stuff like that, you and you alone, me and me alone, have to be willing to take the consequences, not blaming somebody else. And I don't know if I said that strong enough, but if I decide to do something, I've got to be willing to own it 100%. 100%, not, you know, and I can't blame, even in my thinking, I can't blame you, you know, for influencing me to do that. So you got to develop your mind, and again, that takes something. You got to study. You mentioned knowing your body, listening. You got to know. You got to know. This is exactly what I'm saying, but it's unrelated. It seems like, and that is this. I ask people sometimes, do you know the voice of God from your voice, from the voice of everything else? Do you know? What does God sound like? I know those are silly questions, but the reality is there's all kind of voices going on all the time. You got to be able to distinguish, you know, when God is talking and what he sounds like, what happens, you know.
What is his voice?
It's
Like you said, when it's my sheep, hear my voice.
Yeah.
So what is his voice?
Yeah, that's his word. Well, you know, and how do you receive that? So when you hear that, something happens. What happens? How do you know that God's talking to me, or is that my voice? How do you distinguish the two? And this takes study, and it takes, and I don't know if it's one size fit all, but there is a pattern. There is something that you got to come to a place of knowing, not guessing. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because listen, this is serious. Life is serious business,
Mm-hmm.
and death is even serious, more serious.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I'm just not talking about life and death in terms of just a lifespan, but we're going someplace. We, you know, uh, I don't think you want to get there too early.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, all of those things, but it takes knowing the voice of God, developing that knowing inside of you to know that God is leading you in a certain direction. What does that feel like? What does that look like? How do you know? It takes trial and error experience. You're going to miss it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd rather miss it on things that I can recoup than things that is life and death issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's important, and I'll say this because I don't know what our time is, but I
Mm-hmm.
will say it's important to get in a atmosphere, or space, or community
Mm-hmm.
that can help you answer these questions,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, help you to raise other questions
Mm-hmm.
that you have to dig and find the answer to. Because at the end of the day, it's your life, and every one of us individually got to stand before the judgment seat of God. And we have to give an account.
Yes.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't need to be ignorant,
Mm-hmm.
about that and just show up
Mm-hmm.
unprepared. You
Yes.
better be ready for these things.
Well.
That don't sound like what we're talking about, but it is.
Yeah, well, even one scripture does say, and I want to kind of move a conversation in a different direction a little bit, but the scripture does say, "Gird up the loins of your
Be
mind,
sober. Yeah,
and be sober, and have hope to the end."
yeah,
And girding up the loins of your mind, getting your mind together,
yeah,
in really bringing your thoughts into
yeah,
focus, and we've been talking about a mind that heals,
yeah.
and sometimes you need a healed mind. and,
All the time.
and so you need your mind to be healed and fed, and like you said about the community, who you hanging out with, and
Yeah.
who are you around? Are you around people who believe? Who are you around people who speak life, and say things that will edify you and feed your mind?
Mm-hmm.
So now a mind that is going to bring about some healing actually may need to be fed
Mm-hmm.
and taken care of so that it can continue to take care of the rest of this is our central nervous system,
Whew.
and when that's not well,
Yeah.
I don't know how everything else could be well.
Can't be. I mean, it just can't. You can survive a lot of time with broken parts. You can.
Hmm.
You sure can.
Yeah.
But that's not the best uh, scenario. You're not at your best. I believe that if there's a takeaway from my story, my life, the the thing that I have found the most valuable, bar none, that is the really making my mind whole, or doing things to uh, nourish that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my contribution to life largely depends on how I think,
Mm-hmm.
you see, and I've had some very bad thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really thankful that through all of these different things, and it may have taken for me. For me, it probably did take all of the different things to break in my physical body to settle me down to be able to say what I'm saying now, to think, to really, you've got to nourish that mind. But you got to get in a place again, back to the community, back to all of these things, nurturing environment. By the way, and you know this, I know you do. That was one of the first thing God put Adam in, was an environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see, and we're talking about the Garden of Eden and all, but that was an environment, uh, And that's what every person needs, especially a man.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be in an environment that nurtures and that you're able to really get something from and give something back. And that that's what I was missing is, just really the mental aspect of feeding the mind and which in turn feeds every other thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see, so
So can you give us some specifics on some things
oh,
that you have done over time and in life, and
mm,
some things maybe you've added in now. You put some other ingredients in. Lately,
yeah,
some things you learned to do that would feed your mind, so that you can have that sound mind
mm,
that allows you to continue to walk in a path that leads you to
that,
health. And the health is not. I do want to say this.
yeah,
It's not just about. You said this already. If the doctor says you got a year to live, you want to live that year.
yeah,
Some people will exist for that year
exactly.
rather than live for that
Survive,
year.
yeah.
Even if you did have that 12 months and that was really true.
Hmm.
Some people, their chest would rise and fall for 12 months. Others, they'll go out, they would enjoy their children, they enjoy their grandchildren, they would enjoy life, they would participate in life, they would contribute to life. And like you said before, I think you alluded to that, just by deciding to live for the 12 months, you might live more years than that because of what you do with the mindset,
Yeah,
deciding to live,
yeah,
deciding to live. So this is not just about existing
hmm,
again.
exactly.
This is about having the fullness of life while you are here,
Hmm.
which means that your body, your soul,
And
and your spirit are well.
yeah,
See,
yeah,
and so how do you contribute to all of that so that you actually are a whole person?
yeah,
What makes you whole, and a lot of time your mindset is what contributes to that.
yeah.
How do you think? How you think? So what have you done to feed into a mind that heals?
Well, there are several things that I have a routine that I do. We'll talk about that, but before I lose this and forget, because this is critical, um, you can't do it all the time by yourself.
Hmm.
So you're going to need people, and I talked about this early on, that's outside of you and don't have looking at it from a training in that. So
Hmm.
I have a therapy. I go to therapy now, and I can say that not proud, but I can say that without shame.
Yes.
You know, um, for several reasons, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that is because they're trained in that area. But added to that, and coupled with that, and other things, I've learned some very helpful things for me. Again, this is my prescription for my life.
Hmm.
I don't say you got to do this,
Hmm.
but everybody should be feeding themselves. So I'm up usually every morning at 5 o'clock. That's kind of my time, and that's a couple of hours at least before anybody else gets up and get involved.
Hmm.
And I have certain little habits or routines that I go through.
Do you really want everybody else to start getting up at 5? Then it might disrupt your thing.
I need you to get up when you.
No, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I
Go
understand.
ahead.
You're right. Uh, but here's the thing that you need some time. This is a long thing, but I'm shortening it to this. Everybody has problems in their worry or whatever. We say don't worry, and that's true. You shouldn't. But do you? I, you call it whatever you want to, but you got things that aggravate you. It comes to your mind. Just you don't ask it; it just shows up. So here's my point. So I get up at 5. I read some. have certain routines. But there's a period of time in that 2 hours that I set aside for worrying.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why would you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, that might be the wrong term, but like even now or in the middle of the day, have anything just ever popped up in your head that you're just concerned about that's been aggravating you? And you don't ask for it, it just shows up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when that happens, and it's not if it happened, but when that happens, I can tell myself, we've already dealt with that, or we will deal with that in the morning at 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
So I set aside a time for aggravation and worry and thinking and solving problems and so forth. Now I've gotten to the point where I get up, my mind tells me, well, we ain't got nothing to worry about today.
Mm-hmm.
I say, no, you're going to worry. You're going to think about problems and so forth. And why do I say that in the middle of this question? Because if what I'm doing is training myself to be organized and to set aside time to do things that's going to happen anyway.
So you don't allow that to disrupt or take over your day.
Yeah,
You put it to a certain period of time.
exactly. So I can, and myself knows, that, yeah, he's right. But I don't want my mind to stop bringing things to me because it brings solutions at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It brings other things. I want it to still bring that, but not the problems. We got a time set to deal with problems. But you can bring me, I want you to continue to do that. Now that sounds crazy, but let me tell you how powerful that is because your mind is designed to do one thing, that's think. It's designed to solve problems. But it also, in the middle of that, it brings them. So you gotta schedule yourself, otherwise you'll be off all
Yeah.
day long.
And you're kind of trying to bring some organization to your mind.
See, it helps me because I'm a problem solver, and so when I hear your problem, I'm trying to think of solutions. But that gets me off task of what I'm doing here. But if I have a specific schedule for different things, I train myself to stay on schedule. That helps me to complete stuff. Because I notice about me that I don't complete a lot of things because I'm doing too many things. But now my routine is I complete stuff. And so I do this for a certain period of time, and that's the end of that. We go to something different, and that's the end of that. It has really helped me to be on time, to stay focused, to do things because I know that I'm going to set a time and complete that. Completion is big, is huge, because I got 100 projects and nothing is completed. So it's, some people schedule, I notice you write everything down, and that is perfect. But you got to find some way to organize your thinking. That's part of this process. Now, as I said, journaling or chronicling is probably the best. But whatever works, you need to do something that works, but you need to do something. Feeding your mind in the morning, we're talking about you want to feed your mind positive things in the beginning. I don't listen to the news. I don't get on the phone. I don't write emails. None. I read, and it's usually scripture or something like that, or something very positive. I think, and lately I've added to that is just, I call it praying, but it ends up being a session of gratitude. And again, now I'm by myself. This is just me. It's not my wife. It's not my children. It's not. And I'm in a place where I'm not disturbing anybody. If I want to holler, I holler. But it allows me to really tune into things, get things out, and really give God, His due. And that just sets my day up for success. It sets my day up to win. because it's not like, if you may have heard me say this, if somebody asked me, well, Gary, how you doing? I said, I quit having bad days. You ever heard me say that? Well, when I first started saying that, that was absolutely not the case. But it has become a habit, and this is what makes it so. It's not what happens during the day, it's how I interpret it.
How you take it, yeah.
Yeah. You can say that, for various reasons, we could be, you could say something to me and I take offense to it. But I don't, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know what I don't know that. So I don't, anyway, all of those kind of things. But those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. You need to develop, or I need to develop, everyone I think needs to develop something that they can rely on that can actually train them to think better. This works for me. I mean, and it morphs, it changes over time to, like I say, to something different. But the procedure or the thing is the same. It's that, I may get over this and start something else, but there's that time set aside for that. But those are some of the things that I do.
Yeah.
That's kind of quirky.
Hey, this is your journey,
That's what I'm
and you're
talking
sharing it with us.
Yeah.
And here's the reality,
Yeah.
that sometimes through the communication and the sharing, we find some things that we can pull from what
Yes.
you are experiencing and what you have shared with us. We can pull something from that, and then we can attach it to our journey.
And it's
help
yours
us
for,
to,
I
yes.
give it freely. Because I
You ain't
got that.
copyrighted?
No.
Okay.
If I did, I relinquish it. But
Yeah.
it is, but that's what I'm talking about, contribution. My life now is about contribution and service,
Yeah.
contribution and legacy. I'm willing, I give willingly, because God gives it to me. I don't know why I keep killing this mic,
Yes.
but God gave it to me, and I don't own it.
Yes, yes.
I'm willing, it has helped me tremendously.
Yes.
And, while everybody else may think something different, I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm really good. I'm living life as far as the full as I can.
Yes.
So,
And so we want to thank you, Ella,
oh my goodness, it's my
Battle,
honor.
for
It's my honor.
sharing your journey with us,
Yeah.
and how God has allowed you to begin to have a mind that heals.
I'm glad to have a mind.
Yeah, man. And we thank you for coming to be with us in this podcast, and we thank you for listening with us. And we would like for you to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast, and let others know about this podcast. And of course, today we've had this conversation with Elder Gary Battle, and talking about his journey in a mind that heals. And we all need that type of mind. We need a certain mindset when we're facing trials, tribulations, health issues. And of course, we all have a mind that needs to be fed
Oh my God.
and taken care of. And if you have some questions or concerns or a topic that you would like to hear discussed on this podcast, you have the liberty to call me at 423-316-8011. 423-316-8011. We hope that you've enjoyed this conversation, and we would love to have you come back to be with us in our next podcast. Come on back.
All right. God bless you.